Hello random viewers and welcome back to the 4th episode of this government-controlled space agency. Here we have Jebediah on a rocket, and the goal is to send him on a flyby of the moon. Now we did have some recording difficulties and I will get to those, but looking at the last video we just had a new person join the government. Instead of just Jameson being the president, we now have another person named Void who has commented that he would like us to focus on space planes. Now this is a problem because my wings that I have unlocked right now are incredibly fragile when it comes to the re-entry heating at 120%. So that means that we're going to have to hold off on that and use these inefficient rockets. You can see here I actually have to burn off some of the solid rocket boosters because I don't have the part count for decouplers. Now, the spaceplane thing is a great idea because these rockets are horribly inefficient. We are throwing away engines and money. It's just a huge waste. So here we are sending it off to the moon. But the big thing is just the capsule comes back and we're wasting so much money. So I completely understand the government's concern in wanting us to use our money more efficiently with airplanes that bring back a lot more of the part. So we will get to that as soon as we can, but we need to unlock more technology. So for now, rockets are a necessary evil. Anyways, here's where the comms blacked out. So we got back to landing. I went out to the moon. We had a lot of trouble because it cannot predict the sphere influence changes. Our tracking station is not upgraded enough. We went around the moon, as you can see there, and then began to come back. We came very quickly. We also had issues with running out of electricity and oxygen. Jebediah survived. The reason you don't see him here is because I recovered him separately to get him out of that old spacesuit as soon as possible. He also ran out of waste storage, so let's just say it didn't smell too nice in that cockpit. Got some good science, and as you can see on the screen, we definitely did get the science from a flyby of the moon. I'm not making it up. It just, the recording cut out. I'll have to be very careful of that. And then we also got some debris that somehow survived. It looks like it's one of the decouplers from one of the solid rocket booster stages. After that mission, we had the necessary science points to unlock another new technology. So this gave us some nose cones and wings. We also used some money to upgrade the vehicle assembly building so that we could actually build some rather complex rockets, and then we upgraded the astronaut complex so that I could get EVA reports and have the Kerbals leave the craft. Now this is Yuzochi again, and he is in a new airplane that should have extremely long range in comparison to the last plane. In this flight he went 2 times the distance that we normally do, and he accomplished this because it has swept wings, only 1 engine, significantly reduced weight, and retractable rear landing gear. The main gear cannot be retracted, it's just not strong enough if I use that retractable gear. But all these little tiny improvements in drag really do help and allow it to double or even triple the range of the old airplane. Fuel burn is spectacular, cruising speed also spectacular. It really is a huge improvement and allows us to go get science. Now this brings up an interesting point. I had to use a biome map of Kerbin to figure out what was in range. I was very restrictive with my views, so I'd only see the peninsula that I'm on. But the big thing is, I'd love it if one of you guys would be a cartographer, if you'd go out and tell me where I need to fly to go get more science, because I don't want to be using biome maps a whole lot. So if one of you would like to look up a biome map, email me where I'm supposed to go on a map of Kerbin that does not have biomes, say, get a rocket to here. This is a biome you haven't gone to, so, you know, I have highlands, I have grasslands, I have mountains, and now desert after this flight to get more science at Kerbin. That would be great. Now here is the solid rocket booster burning out, and as you can see it got kind of stuck. So we had to roll it off. I'm surprised it did not take out the horizontal stabilizer, but Yuzochi's actually a pretty good pilot. He knows what he's doing. And that does bring up something else. I really do need another pilot. I'm using Yuzochi a lot, so if one of you guys in the comments wants a pilot Kerbal named after you, please send a name, and next episode we will create a Kerbal that has your name. So just say, hey, I want a Kerbal named after me, or you could say, I want a Kerbal named this. And we really only need 1 right now, but if multiple are submitted I could add it to a list, and the next Kerbals that I add could have those names. Here it is, flying over the mountains. You can get a good idea of the cruising altitude and speed that this thing gets. The efficiency is really good for a rocket-powered airplane. And it does have this tendency to turn to the left, which is quite annoying. However, that's not too big an issue. You can see the desert over there in the distance. As we began to come over our target, we realized we were far too high, so a 270-degree turn was initiated to lose some altitude to come down to a landing spot. This is something I have done with real airplanes. It works quite well, however it did not work well enough, so Yuzochi had a very interesting idea, and that was to deploy one of the parachutes that serves as a nose cone, and that would then open it, and it drops the plane into a dive. So cut the chute, he's plummeting straight down, pulls out of the dive, pulls about 2 Gs. You can see the wings flexing ever so slightly under the strain, and that definitely got him down to the proper altitude. First landing attempt was okay, but then the Kraken kind of attacked. As you can see here, just started spinning and being bizarre, so I quick loaded. This one, yeah, quick load again. That one was even harder, but then I decided let's just use the parachute and the engine together to help land on the rough terrain. It lands fine on flat ground, but the rough terrain of this desert made it hard. I almost forgot to deploy the rear landing gear there. That would have been bad. But a nice, gentle landing, and Yuzochi got all the science from that area. After hearing the recovery teams complain immensely about bringing Yuzochi back, we have one of the largest rockets we've ever built. I'm sorry, Void, I know this lack of efficiency pains you, but I don't know any other way to land on the moon. So that was the idea. It did not have enough Delta V. We'll get to that. The solid rocket boosters do have parachutes, however the other stages just are too big and heavy. It would not have been practical. Now here's what went wrong on a simulated attempt. The first stage got stuck to the second. So that was not great. It had to burn its way off, which wasted a ton of fuel. So when I separated the first stage, I was really hoping that would not happen after I made some edits. And back to the relaunch. It went great. Came right off. Engines came up, and off the thing went. Back to accelerated speed. No, I don't know why my microphone keeps making all those tapping sounds. Anyways, the second stage carries it all the way up, and it does pretty well there. Issue is that it's not quite enough, so later I will have to build a larger version. This version alone is $50,000. That is 2/3 of a month's budget. Fortunately, it does take over a month to build, so I guess that's okay. Here it is doing its orbital insertion, so the lander stage does that. In the upgraded version that'll come in next episode, it won't have to be doing that. The second stage can get it into orbit and on its way to the moon, just slightly, and then it continues the way. We're on a collision course with the moon and out of electricity, but some quick adjustments fix that. And then here it is going into orbit around the moon. And when we come back to the craft, you can see why it lasts so much longer. It has extra life support canisters, and it has 3 cockpits to hold extra electricity. Down below, they're kind of hidden in the fuel tanks there. But then I found we can get EVA reports. Those are biome dependent, even when you're flying, so each one's worth a large amount of science. We got a lot of science. Here's a simulated landing attempt. This is just to see how much fuel I would have left over. I knew this would be a simulation, and I only had about 500 meters per second of Delta V left. That was only enough to get back into orbit, not enough to get back home. So I quick loaded because I knew this would be a simulation, and we went back home from low orbit around the moon, knowing that we'd need a bigger rocket. We then began the return trip back to Kerbal. Yuzochi was, I guess, good to go, happy to be heading home. The electricity kept running out though, so that was fun. We had to make a lot of adjustments along the way just to keep the batteries charged, to keep the life support running. So the next technology I get will definitely be batteries, so that I can not have my Kerbals suffocating due to their oxygen fans not running. Finally made it back to Kerbal and detached from that lander without dying. Unfortunately, I did not lower the periaps enough, so we were not going on our first attempt. I had Yuzochi quickly jump out, grab an EVA report in the upper atmosphere. He did burn to death, but fortunately I had quick saved, so we just went back to that. I figured that would happen, so I needed to figure out how to do it quickly. Here's our second pass through the atmosphere. And then we finally made it back down. You can see how charred that heat shield got. Yuzochi decided he wanted to test out the new parachute that the astronaut complex unlocked. He watched his capsule land, and then eventually executed a nice graceful spiral faceplant next to it. The ground glitches, so I have a quick fix for that, and he was very happy to be back on the ground. Just look at this science load. It's really good. The moon is where we need to be going. And then here are some of the technologies that we could consider unlocking. Again, I definitely want batteries, but after that you guys can kind of direct me slightly. It sounds like we're going for more airplane parts, but anything you want me to know. So, send in your suggestions for Kerbals, comment on anything else you want the government to be doing. I need a cartographer, tell me where to go get more science. And yes, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day.